Hey, it's Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday, August 30th, and this will be our chart lesson for today. Um, you can see it's a really big sell-off again today. Started out very, very bearish. Uh, Honestly, we spent the majority of the day just going sideways. I think it's about a 20-point range, if I remember correctly. We'll look at it when we get over there. But we really spent most of the day just going sideways. This sell-off was fast and furious and very strong. Not surprising at all. This is what I talked about this sell-off all the way up here, and looked like it was going to try to make a liar out of me. But you can see now we're starting to sell off, and we did hit oversold territory today. Anything below this brown line is oversold, so you can see we backed off of that. Now, whether or not we'll continue to go lower here, we'll just have to see if we're going to get another. We may get a correction here. We may just go sideways and some consolidation, a little inside day tomorrow. I don't know. Or we could just continue lower. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we continue lower. We'll just have to see what tomorrow's going to bring. But definitely bearish today. But we'll flip over to the other chart and we'll take a look at that and we'll go from there. Okay, here's our 2000 tick intraday chart. And you can see we sold off really strongly here. We started out in this, well, actually, we started out on a smaller channel up here, but then we went to this blue one, but we kind of folded over it. That was really steep, but we folded over somewhat to this yellow one. This trend line never really held again, but you can see we got a break of the blue one and a new low, and then we got a break of the yellow one and eventually a new low, and we mostly just worked sideways, really. From this break on was sideways. But I believe both of those channels were clear and obvious. And sometimes you'll fold over and even get a flatter one, but today I think we were just so oversold that we just went sideways. And it looks like this range is maybe 30 points here or so. Or no, I was right. It was 20 points. No, about 30 points. So we're down. Lows are down here around 39.70. We got a little lower than that. So 70, 75. So 25 to 30 points was our range for the most part. We actually stayed in these tighter ranges within it a good bit too. But that's what we're looking at. Very bearish day. Um, and even here, even though we're sideways here, we traded down into this very, very strongly. So you'll notice this mostly only sales. I marked one blue in here late in the afternoon. That was once we had a new low here and we traded up into this little sideways and had a failure. So it looked like we were going to at least come back to the highs of the range. I marked that trade. Um, on a day like this, you may only want to look for shorts. And fairly, and for the most part, this trend was so strong. There's not a lot of setup. So any second entry was really a good trade. You could just about take it if the signal bar was good too. So think about that as we go through these trades. This is not a typical trading day. Early on, this was a free fall basically. And so as long as the trends and channels were in play and you got second entries, I'd go short on them because you just about have to, because you're not getting a lot of setups. You're not coming back to the trend line very often. It's just too weak. It's too much selling. And so get what you can out of it. Try to get runners. Hold on to those runners for dear life. Don't let them take, if you caught a runner up here and you rode it all the way down here, don't ride this correction out. Once it's obvious we're going higher, take your profit and look for a new entry, or call it a day and enjoy your easy trade and move on. That's the way I would do it. But anyway, let's zoom in here. We'll go through the trades, and there's a lot of them today, so I'm going to move pretty quickly because I don't want this to be a 45-minute to an hour video, which it could be when we have a day like this. So bear with me here, and I'm going to move a little faster than normal, most likely. So, but 7 o'clock came just as we're coming down here, and we get a bounce and you quickly get a second entry, and look at that big bearish bar. The problem is it's really close to these lows, so I don't know if you want to take that or not, but a lot of time, I mean, this This was not, I mean, it was still a big, strong sell-off, but it's not what you see later on. So this is a little early to be saying, hey, take every second entry. Um, but I marked it. I marked it with green. If you took it, you'd probably want to let it break lower and drop a limit order a little higher and see if you could get a better feel. It wouldn't have mattered in the end, but you don't know that ahead of time, so you got to be careful. And then we dropped on down and you get another second entry here. A second entry by itself there is not really a great setup, but when you get a triple test as well, um, as long as you got room to get out for these lows, I'd probably take that trade. And you can see it turns out to be a pretty nice trade. We drop on down. Then we're just kind of going sideways here, and I just don't. There's just not any really good setups, and you would think you really don't know that you've got this blue channel. There's a good idea now. There has to be something running down through here for this to be bouncing on. So I would draw my trend line backwards here and see what you come up with. So that's how I would get to that point. You can always, sometimes when you can't find a trend line because the market's too weak or too strong, you can come into it backwards by finding something along the bottom here. And it's obvious that prices are bouncing off something there because they keep finding support there. So no way to trade that. This is a breakout pullback short, but it's just a first entry. It's not a great setup. I mean, that was a pretty good signal bar. And I think this broke lower first and then turned up. So it wasn't like you would know this was a engulfing bar. If it would have broke higher and then turned down, maybe you go short right there. But the fact that it broke lower first, just on the first entry, I'm not crazy about it. I would wait. And you do get a second entry here, but the signal bar is no good. And it just kind of drops on down. And then finally, you make another triple test here and another big signal bar. To get another chance to go short. Notice you try to go higher once, twice, 3 times, and look at that big bearish bar. And it just drops kind of down and goes sideways again. This probably should be pink just to make it real clear so people can see it real easily. And then once again, you get another triple test here. 1, 2, 3. But the key here is it's off both trend lines, the yellow and the blue. So there's a hidden second entry there. I'm not going to go into a lot of details about that. It's a little more advanced, so it's not for everybody. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. You wouldn't want to trade that anyway. But you get that short there. There's actually a second entry short right here, but that's an inside bar, and then it comes back. And again, you're not necessarily looking for second entries here because you're kind of chopping sideways, but it is off a key entry point. But it does come back here again and turns down at the same place. It's not a perfect signal bar though, so I marked it green. It turned out to be a really nice trade, but it's because it's at the key entry point of 2 very strong sell-offs. So you would hope you'd get a lower high here or maybe a failure or something to get on board with, but you don't, and it just takes off. And it's unfortunate because that's a really nice drop down, and then we're just working sideways again. But if you sit tight, within a few minutes you get another triple test and a nice signal bar right there again at a key entry point. There's a lower high here, and I didn't mark it. If there's enough room there, I'm not sure if there is or not. I didn't even check it. If there's enough room there, you might consider that one. See, it's only 5 ticks. So, I mean, in real time, it didn't look that good. After the fact, if there was enough room, maybe, but there's not even enough room, so I'm not even going to talk about it. But you drop on down, and then next thing you know, you're coming back. It's just a failed break out of the range. Even in a strong downtrend, sometimes those breakouts fail, and they may only be temporary, but they fail. And you might have looked at this. Notice you try to go higher once, twice, and you actually try to go higher 3 times there. You'll have to excuse me. I'm still struggling with my throat issue here. When I start talking a lot, my throat starts itching. So, and sometimes it just comes on so fast I don't have time to pause it. So, I apologize. Just bear with me on this throat thing. It'll pass here in a few more days, hopefully. But anyway, um, you can't really look at that as a failure because the failure happened here, and that just looks too congested. It's too risky. It could break lower and then turn back up here. But again, it turns out to be a really nice move, and you just don't get a chance to enter it. But if you just sit tight, a few minutes later, you get a second entry short right here. Like I said, there, it's also, we tried to go higher multiple times there. At this point, just take every second entry. If it's, if you got room to get out, that's the key. And it just keeps going. There's a lower high. It actually broke higher there and turned back down. But by that time, it looks a little congested. And it does the same thing here again. But now you've got a triple bottom. It's little, and you see it tried to bounce. But this is a really strong day. So maybe you try to take that trade. I would just wait. And technically, we've got a whole, we've already had a break in new low here. So really, we've got a whole new trend channel here. And you can see really what happens. We get a break right here, and it continues to go lower. I mean, maybe you look at it, you could probably say, hey, it starts here, and then you get your break and new low, and that's, to me, I think that's the accurate. I mean, we're still sideways here, and that's really where the downtrend starts. A lot of times people ask me, why'd you draw your trend line there? Well, that's why, because technically that's where the downtrend starts. Sometimes you might get a trend from up here that you could start, but you can see this one clearly starts here. It's very accurate. You get a close outside, new low, and then it reverses. So, and this is a second entry short here, and you got, if you got enough room to get out, take that trade. And I'd probably take this one anyway because we haven't hit the low side of the khaki, much less the low side of the blue, and we could do both. So, and then suddenly we bounce. We do come off the yellow, the low side of the yellow, and we're headed to the high side now. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the blue ones, we've already had the break and new low. So you could say it's played out. And now we've got a break of the yellow one. And it takes a little while, but it eventually makes a new low too. So you just have to play it out as it goes. And I don't see any reason to buy here. I don't see anything that would make me want to buy. And you need to be really careful going short here. You do get your break, because notice that that's a spike in channel up. So we'll probably retest that high. So be real careful going short here. And you can see finally you're headed lower here, making lower lows. And then you get a second entry short with a nice signal bar. Even that doesn't go very far, but that's the kind of trade you want to wait on in order to go short again. And of course, it runs back up, and we get a close outside new high, then we're running down, close outside new low. And so I like this one as a trap here. It's also a first entry, and then it breaks higher and turns down. So it's a second entry short when it goes down lower there, but it's also a first entry, second entry long. It's technically a failure right here, but I don't see any reason to go short right there. Okay, I had a slight interruption there. I apologize. I think we were talking about this trade. We're working down, second entry. Actually, we were over here, I believe. And you technically, you have a second entry there, but not a very good setup. And then you get a lower high here. It actually, and I'm not sure which way that breaks first, but if it broke higher, you could enter that on the engulfing bar. If not, just wait for it to close, and I would let it break lower there and drop a limit order, maybe a few ticks back, just to give you some room, and then hopefully the downtrend starts back up again. Doesn't work out that way, but you're still looking for a retest of this low here. You can see all the moves have been working out each way, and there's actually one up here that I didn't get the. Then you're working higher here. And again, I don't think you want to go be looking for any longs just yet, because because this is not, if we were going higher, it should have taken on off. This looks really weak. More, and you can see we're on each side of the EMA, and we traded down into this area, so your bias is still down. But notice your break there, 2 legs to a new high, and then it turns down. This one's tempting here, and maybe you take that one. I mean, you could argue for that one to be green. And it actually breaks higher and turns down there, and I didn't mark that one either because it looks a little congested. But it's another one you could argue to be green, at least. And it runs on down. But if you wait here, notice it comes down. You get to close outside, and you get a first entry, second entry. Now you got a big bearish bar. Runs down to a new low. Now we're running up. There's actually a close outside and 2 legs up here. But I don't think you want to go short because we just had a failed break out the low side of this, and we haven't got back to the high side. And technically, this is played out. But then you get 2 more legs up, so you actually get another leg up here. And you get this one working down, and you don't get any break of it. I like this one just simply because you had 2 legs up here, and that's a second entry short back at the highs of where mostly it's been turning down. This one's close because it did make a new high. It's a little bit iffy, but on this day, being that far away from the EMA, I liked it to go short. And I'm guessing you can see how bearish that move was down, and then there was another real hard bearish, and then suddenly they ran it up. Somebody came in here buying, and maybe they just wanted to run the stops up here. Maybe this was just a trap to get to run these stops. But you can see once they finally ran all these stops up here, this thing, the bottom falls out of it again, and off it goes. And you actually get, there's actually 2 legs down here. I've already got them on there. I don't know what I'm doing. And we didn't quite make a measured move. You can clearly see, I think I got that a little high anyway. But we still didn't quite get a measured move. But you get this big move down. You don't really get a chance to enter in here, but it breaks out, and then you get a first entry, second entry, and look how bearish that is. I like going short there. A lot of times you wouldn't take this failed breakout, but on a day like this, it's bearish. I think you got to take that trade. And of course, you make your new low, and now you got a trend working up. You get a close outside, 2 legs up to a new high, and you get a chance to go short right there with another big bearish bar after this is played out. And now this is where you'd look for the second leg down. And if you can catch like a move like that, that's a pretty easy move to get a runner on. And we run on, notice you get a close outside and a move to a new low, and then you got one working up, and it just keeps going lower, but we hadn't reached our target. And this one, I believe this is probably an overshoot. I mean, this looks more accurate to me. And then you get this big last push overshoot, and then it just reverses. And that's tempting, right? If that would have broke higher, I'd probably say take that as a reversal. But I'm not as crazy about it the way it's set up right there. You might argue, I mean, there's a little tick there, so by the counts, it's not. But you might argue that's a first entry, second entry, and it would be on a bigger chart. And if you looked at it like that, maybe you go short right there. I don't know. So anyway, runs on down to a new low, and you break out the low side. You don't really get a good enough signal bar or anything to go long right there. And again, if this would have continued on and you got a good reversal or something, maybe you take a chance at a long there. But again, I think you wait. And you can see it. You get a close outside here in the second entry, and you might even argue that's a little double bottom, and you could almost argue it's a triple test, but I still don't feel comfortable going long in this market yet. And you can see it didn't go anywhere. You would have got your scalp, but it just doesn't go anywhere. And then suddenly you get a lower high, and then a lower high. So there's a failed second entry long there, and then it tries to go higher one more time. And then I looked at that more like a triple test with that big bearish bar. I mean, we at least double tested the range again after the failed breakout. And nice bearish bar, so I think that was worth taking. We run down, we fell out the bottom again. I don't think you want to go long. You get a second entry here again, but the signal bar is no good. It looks congested, and then suddenly you get a lower high, and you get a great signal bar. And this is almost a perfect repeat of the one I showed you a minute ago. More like wherever it was. I can't remember where it was now. But you could look at that almost as one move and a second entry on a larger chart. And then you're just stuck in this stuff. And you finally get a little failed break here. But again, I just don't think you want to go long. And I talked about this. You finally get this failed break lower, which you would expect that to fail, but it might only fail enough to trap you. So you don't really want to go long there. But notice how you run up and you get a first entry short, and then you run up and you get a second entry that fails, and then you double test that breakout area. And the main thing is it confirms that trend line, and it's a second entry long, and there's plenty of room there. So I think that's worth taking, just to see if you can get a second entry long to ride back to the other side of the range again, because we did get a failed breakout down the bottom. I mean, I really thought normally you would probably go higher right here, but I think the issue is it's just such a bearish day. People were not willing to buy it, and then finally they got a little momentum going here, and we ran straight to the top, and then it's over again, and we're heading lower again. And I don't see anything that would make me want to go short yet until you finally get this second entry short right here with that nice signal bar, and then you make a lower high. And I marked both of those green because it's really late in the day, and there's a chance that it could make another run up and test those highs again. So because we had some good momentum here. I think this is probably just short cover. It's getting late in the day, and people are probably it starts moving here, and the sellers just say, I'm gonna call it a day, and they exit, and there's probably some short covering. But if you look at the price action, if we're in this pink range and we just had a failed break lower, the odds are we're probably going back to the high. Usually you wouldn't see this in the middle. So, but the price action ends up playing out, and then we end up closing pretty much in the middle of the range there. So very interesting day. Lots of opportunities to take some shorts, lots of second entries, and on a day like this, if you get a good second entry short and you're expecting prices to go lower and you got room to get out, just take those trades. And I mean, they're high probability anyway, and on a strong trend day, the odds are really on your side. Just take them. And so that's the way I saw it. Be interesting to see where we go from here tomorrow, but I'll be here ready to go, curious to see what we're going to do. But wouldn't surprise me if we go further down. Wouldn't surprise me if we have an inside day and a little consolidation, or maybe even a little correction. But it's just hard to say. So overall, I think we're going much lower. I really do. I've been saying that all along, and it looks like it's finally we're finally starting to see the selling come back again. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll